schools and stuff? Why no parents? Like, what's the spread?
Yeah, there's two thoughts right now, I guess, is that can they keep people social distancing while they're at the game, right? Which, like, by marking bleachers off every 6 feet, which is really tough. I mean, my family would be my wife and my daughter in the stands, but some families have multiple kids and things. And the other one is just to say, no, if you want to watch, you're gonna have to do it like, streaming or something like that to do it. But it's, again, safety. I do know that coaches are going to be required to wear masks, they're saying, which will make coaching fun.
And how do you communicate as a coach in private an offense or defensive move?
Yeah.
Behind a mask, like you become masters as a quarterback at reading lips.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, most of the kids ignore coaches anyway, right? Especially when they're in trouble, they just turn their backs out. And that's what's nice about football. You can ignore your coach there, so it just makes it easier with having the mask on. So
awesome. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan. How are you?
Man, hey, Cody. I'm good. I was just gonna pipe in on that too. One of the things I don't like about the whole mask thing is it muffles everybody's voice, right? How many times do you go through a drive-through and they try and talk and you can't understand a single thing they say?
Right, exactly.
It can happen the same thing on a field. However, coaches like to yell and they're pretty vocal, so I think it'll come out anyway. But
right. Well, and in football, you got 11 kids in a huddle, which are all in a 6-foot space, right? While they're huddling together. I mean, and then they're going to be going, knocking heads with each other and stuff. Probably the least of anybody's concerns the coach is wearing a mask, if they're really concerned about it. But so far, my understanding is that every school in the state's going to be able to go through fall sports, with the exception of a couple of Salt Lake ones that actually have some kids that tested positive, and maybe Salt Lake County, being what they are, Salt Lake City anyway, may not be able to do that anyway. So
yeah.
We're part of Granite School District right now, and my daughter's team is currently conditioning for volleyball, but I'll be interested, and I'll be so bummed missing. And I get you can watch on TV, it's not the same. It's just not.
Right.
Yeah, I have a harder time with this and had a harder time her going into her senior year than I did kindergarten. Kindergarten, I was like, bye, see you guys.
Right.
And now I'm at the end. And so I'm more disappointed probably than she is. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But,
well, my daughter going into the 7th grade is really excited to go back to school. My son, who's a sophomore, he's not so excited to go back to school. But
not excited. No. That's how my kids are. Mine are all excited, except for the mask part.
Right.
But I feel bad for teachers. They're going to have to manage all these kids wearing masks.
Right.
It's just going to add to what they already have to do.
Right, especially the kindergarten to the 3rd graders. I mean, I've never seen a kid keep something on their face for that long, so especially if you tell them you have to.
Yeah, it'll be a fun year for them, won't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So, very interesting stuff going on. That's the other thing that I don't really understand about all this is we're required to wear a mask, but then we also have to be 6 feet apart. Why do we have to have a mask if we're required to be 6 feet apart? I thought that was the whole reason to be 6 feet apart. So why both? I know it's extra precautions, but let's go 10 feet apart and get rid of the masks.
Right. So which never works either, right? I mean, I've never seen a lot of folks that would be able to keep 6 feet away. Although I guess I could walk around with like a hot shot or something, keep people at bay. But
that's true, very true.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I really just am looking at how do we adjust? How do we make the best of it moving forward? I feel bad for the coaches. I feel bad for the players. I feel really bad for the teachers, administration that have to mitigate it between the parents that are hard against it and those that are hard for it, and those kids that also have their own very stubborn opinions. I don't know. Some are they're hard-headed. They believe what they believe, and they're going to do what they want. And I know my 15-year-old is adamant he's not going to wear a mask, and he's in high school, let alone these kindergartners. It'll be interesting.
Right, for sure. Yeah, it'll be an interesting year.
Yeah, well, it'll set the stage. We'll see. But thank you so much for joining us, Cody. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited to have you on. There's been lots of changes, and I get a lot of questions, or both Ryan and I do, about how to register products and what's up and coming and how do people get involved. And so I'm excited to chat about it. But first of all, thanks everybody else for coming or for joining us today. And Ryan, I'm glad you're back in Utah. How was your travel? We didn't really talk about it much yesterday. How was your travel?
I actually tried calling you about an hour ago, and you were on the other line, I guess. Travel was good.
Blame this guy.
Yeah. Florida was nice. Like I tell everybody, now's honestly the best time to travel. It is so great to travel. Planes are all clean. Everybody wipes down the plane around them, so you know the plane is clean. You know that they are exchanging out the filters all the time, so the air is cleaner. There's nobody in the airports. It's the best time to travel. So if anybody's thinking about traveling, travel. It's so nice right now. Nobody's in security line. So easy.
I've been very spoiled working with Ryan over here. I guess you got to point the opposite direction, Cody. You're going to learn. You got to point the other way, because I got to travel to a ton of different events and meet a ton of people, and I'm craving it so bad. And here, just yesterday and early this morning, I was telling a friend of mine how I've taken on this job that requires me to sit in the office. And somebody said, "Why don't you come up to the lake? We've got a house, and you can work from here, or fly out to California and you can work from here." I was like, yeah, well, I've got these meetings scheduled that I can't miss. And everybody's like, "What do you mean you have these meetings scheduled? You don't have to just stay somewhere to work." No, I totally do. Right. So, Cody, I'm on your team when it comes to being in Utah and moving the needle in the industry, because we're here while Ryan's traveling. And
right.
But it's still, even with that being said, Ryan, it's pretty awesome that you get to work from both places, because I know you don't sit around and not work when you go anywhere. No. Between reading at midnight or 4 a.m. to working on clients and calls, you're a busy man, but I'm glad you got to go. It's awesome.
Never stop. And I need to apologize to both of you right now, because while I was in Florida, I booked a call that I have to get done, and I thought I was putting it at 12:30. Yeah, I did put it at 12:30, but that was 12:30 Eastern time. I forgot to put in it just for the time zone difference. So
I love it.
I actually have to jump off in about 20 minutes. Hopefully it'll only be like a 10-minute call, I'm hoping. So I'll jump on after, but I may jump off for a bit.
Okay. Well, let's let Cody get to it. Cody, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do, and move forward. So.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd be happy to. So Cody James, I'm with the Utah Department of Agriculture and Foods Industrial Hemp and Medical Cannabis Program. Recently, I've been tasked with taking over the management of those programs since Drew Rigby left. They're back in middle of March there, and moving it forward. He did a good job of getting us started. Now, like I said, I'm tasked with keeping it going and trying to keep up with all the changes that are out there. I've been worked the Department of Agriculture in several different aspects for about 15 years now. I started in the plant industry there as an investigator with them. I moved into animal industries where I helped change some policies there, and kind of became known as the person that I guess fixes programs. And so they asked me to come over to these new programs, and I never had that opportunity to build new ones. I had opportunities always to fix it. So I actually looked forward to something that you didn't have to change from behind and move forward. We just get to keep moving forward, and that's what we're going to try and do.
Cool. Very, very cool. So what are your thoughts moving from even the animal or any other department into cannabis? Everybody I talk to in this industry says it's the most difficult business or industry to be in. What's your opinion moving over to a new industry?
And we're a little scared jumping into this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm still learning. I'll be the first one to admit that I've got a lot of learning to do as far as the industry goes and what it takes. But just in the year that I've been here as part of this program, you can see it's a different animal altogether, and it does take a lot of work. There's a lot of things that go into it that I think if you haven't been in the business for a little while, that it's going to shock people as the amount of work, the amount of hoops that you have to jump through to be successful. Coming as again, I've been with the department for 15 years, first in the plant industry side of things, where we dealt with alfalfa farmers and corn farmers and different fruit growers, things like that. They had it down. It's been there. They were always going to have a market, whether it be an up market or a down market, but there was always a market for that. This last year on industrial hemp, we didn't see that. And maybe, I don't know for sure if that was one of the things that kind of happened, was they thought there would always be that market. And then with the flooding of it, it just wasn't there and concerning. But, and then, like I said, the work, I mean, I think one of the best things I've heard is that, you may have a couple acres planted, but it's not that you just get to go out and turn the water on every couple of days. This is more like tending a garden on the production side, and you got to be there all the time, every day, and it takes some work. So
very labor intensive.
I know guys that have, I mean, it's almost like dairy farming, right? We all know that dairy farmers, when they decide to start that business, they don't take a vacation until they retire.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, that's these cannabis guys. I mean, I know farmers that they're on those plants daily. They cannot take a day off because they can't afford to, because any given day, something could go wrong if they're not tending them.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's constant for them. I mean, alfalfa, as long as your pivot's working or your sprinklers are working or your kids are out there moving lines, it's growing, and then you just wait until you got it.
Right.
It's a different crop altogether.
Yeah, and again, like the markets as well, right? I mean, even if you've got you get your hay rain on, at least there's the cow market, where you can sell your cow hay too or something, and even if it's not the best, and it might not be for what you wanted it for, but at least it's sold.
It's sold.
You can find it. But in this industry, we obviously saw that some folks were having to sit on what they harvested last year, and so we were getting that information as far as people, hey, I'm not even sure I want to grow anymore. I don't want to get a license, but I still have this product. Well, what can we do? So we started extending licenses, and then once we had that opportunity, we changed the law and the rule to put that in there, that there is a way now to extend licenses, so you can, if need be, sit on that product for a couple of months or whatever, to make sure that you still have that legal way of moving that product.
Yeah. And I'm curious from you, Cody, being on the state side of things, what I'm curious about are what are some of it seems like the general consensus is that everybody wants to move the industry forward, but what are some of the big roadblocks that you run into being on the Department of Ag side, maybe with the state representatives or up on Capitol Hill? What are some of these roadblocks that you're finding that you're trying to get over to help with the industry as well?
I think the two biggest ones that I'm seeing is a misunderstanding of the state leaders. I mean, I think out there's still a lot of groups and people who can't distinguish between industrial hemp and marijuana. I've seen that at the county level. I've seen that at the public level, and I've seen that up on the Hill as well with legislators and senators. Trying to distinguish that this is a legal crop, that this is something that is really breaking through, and if not already breaking through into the norm for the nation. Because they always say it smells like, I'd say like a duck, looks like a duck, walks like it, but it's not. It smells, looks, and like marijuana, and that's what they think, especially a little bit in this conservative state. But I think they're coming around, and I think that associations like you guys' and a couple others throughout the state and the public for real overall is going to help make that push. And then the introduction of the medical marijuana market and us being able to keep that separate from the other is going to help this. The second roadblock is the federal government, right? I mean, they did come out, they've legalized hemp, but USDA's rules took a long time to get through, and now we're dealing with our program has to meet their criteria, so we've had to make some changes as far as that and to our rules there. And I could be, sorry, I was just going to end up with saying that I could be wrong, but I would imagine that most of our public in the state wants the state to be the ones to regulate versus the feds. I mean, the feds seem to be the heavy-handed one, where the states, at least in my tenure here, which is short still, is that we want to work with you guys and we're willing to change and meet those restrictions that we have to federally, but as you say, move that forward.
I'm really excited to hear what you just said. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that the federal government you guys are kind of butting up against some of the federal regulations that you had a little bit more loosely laid out and now have had to change or adjust to meet their regulations. I hear often on the opposite of this, there's a lot of states out there that come in and really try to put the hammer down, and the federal government has said, you can't do that. Here's what we recommend and suggest. And so I want to reiterate that when you say education really is the number one, I think it also goes back to that piece also, and understanding where our legislation is and where the rules or laws or regulations are actually coming from. And we have a lot of talk about it on the USDA and under Big Pharma umbrella. What has to change on that level in order to allow this product to be both a vitamin and a medicine, and an animal product, and clothing, and textiles, and biofuels? And it's the only product out there that literally fits in every single category and every single association. And so I guess my advice, or what I want to put out there, Cody, and again, I speak for myself, but I think I speak for us all, is careful where we're pointing fingers, and just make sure that we're educating ourselves and utilizing resources to really figure out. But with that said, what's your advice to people who are passionate about change or have a voice or a concern? How do they address those concerns? Where do they go with them?
I think that the best is to go through us first, have these open communications with us in the department, and then we can form that partnership and go forward, whether it be to the state legislators and senators or to the federal representatives, because that's really where the change is going to happen. And I've mentioned at a couple of meetings that we've had, is that Commissioner Wild has not necessarily wanted to be the policy changers in it, but he wants to make sure that we're protected in our jobs and just do what our jobs is, which is a bit of regulation. But if there's good ideas and to move forward, he's always believed and does still believe that the industry should be the ones pushing that forward, and we'll just be there to support that. I mean, whether it's at the legislative session where someone wants the law changed and we go, we've talked to them, we think it's a great idea and supportive there. But to really answer your question is to go to those folks who are making those laws and try and get them educated. I mean, at the last meeting you guys held last week, there was talk about getting a large national association together. I'm sure that's a huge task, but to become something like the National Cattlemen's and Beef Association, who has a huge amount of pull within this nation overall, would be, I'm sure it takes a lot of steps and a lot of time and money to get to that thing. But once you can have that and have those meetings with our national leaders, and I think hemp is on its way. I personally think that the majority of these regulations for hemp are going to go away over the next couple of years, probably 10 would be my guess, where it's looked at as a regular agricultural crop. I do, on the other hand, think that FDA, when they finally get their rules put in place, and that there's going, because it's looked at as consumer, vitamins or whatever you want to say at this time. But I think that's always going to be there. But I would foresee that with education, with pushing from the industry, that this is going to be pushed into the realm of normality for ag products.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, going back to the educational piece, you talked about the misunderstanding that there is. Are there any educational symposiums that any of the legislators are attending to learn about it? Are there any formal events that they're actually going to learn so that they can get that understanding for themselves? Or is that something where they're relying more on your department to say, hey, we've done the research, we've learned about this is what it is, and you guys basically need to present it to them?
Yeah, I think initially and over the last year, that's how it's been. Other than the handful of representative centers that were, had a big hand in the recent laws and things like that, and getting this legalized in the state over the last couple of years, I think they did their own research. And I can't speak for every one of them, obviously, but I know that over the past year that a lot of the information that they were receiving came from either Drew or from our team that was starting the programs prior to that there. And then I think with COVID, obviously it shut everybody down, but I would reach out as much as you can as your associations and everybody, whether it's on the local leadership level, your county commissioners or whatnot, as well as your state ones, to get them there, let them see what's out there, and talk to them as much as you can. That's where it's really going to be. I've always, in the 15 years that I've been here, I've always had a bit of an issue with them. With industry moves so much faster than government. I mean, and I think everybody should do that. And really, government, in my eyes, should move slower, because we shouldn't be making knee-jerk reactions to what one or two people say. It should always be good for the majority. I'm not sure that that's how political things are working in the country right now, but that's how I kind of want to run the program. And again, that's where it comes back to, let us back you guys up, let us be there, and we can bring the numbers of compliance, we can bring the numbers of, or what the rules are and how we're reading them, and what, if there's a roadblock that's out there for industry and it's a truly needed change, or it makes sense, then you got, again, industry can go educate them about it. They can come to us and we can say, yeah, we see how that is a concern or is a problem. Again, going back to, the extension of licenses, that was obviously a problem that was affecting the majority of growers last year, and it wasn't that hard to even take a step out of what our rule said and say, hey, let's extend that and then get the rule changed later on. But
yeah, and I love what you said about reaching out to the representatives. I mean, Mandy, I almost want to just pay somebody just to, I don't want to say harass them, but do constant follow-up daily about events that we have, or events that we know other people
are going to,
like you can, and some of the other that are on the show, big associations, and just flood their emails. Let them know, hey, this is going on. We want you here. We want you here. Just open up to them and just keep inviting. Eventually they'll come.
Yeah.
Well,
I know Shane England's got his event this weekend too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm super excited, as you say, as we grow this national organization. Ryan Fritchie, you've been out of the conversation for a little bit, but we as an organization have moved forward leaps and bounds since we've spoken last, Cody. We have a meeting on the 21st that we're going to basically open up and invite people to. If anybody is interested, please make sure you contact us. Our website at Utah CBD Collective is up and running. We are accepting memberships, but this is an open to anybody looking to move the industry forward, not just somebody who has a hemp or cannabis business. We realize, and I know, Cody, you do, how impactful this can be to the state on an economic level and sustainability. And so that's really important. And I also want to reiterate, and I say this all the time, when I talk to people, something that stood out to me the most, Cody, when we met in your office with Miles, was when we asked, what can we do to support and to get involved? The one thing you said is show up for conversation. If you're passionate about making change, or anyone is passionate about making change in this industry, show up. Let's have this conversation. We have put together an organization that will represent everything and anybody in the cannabis and hemp industry. And we are opening it up to give you a voice, right? Where you fall is based on how much you want to do and how much you want to show up. This isn't just a pay to play industry, right? The industry is a community, and we know very well that we take care of our small businesses, and the little guys, we all rise. And so that's our goal. And I like, more than anything, when I speak to somebody, and Cody, I'm able to say, listen, the state, we're on the same team. We're here to run a program and make sure that it's done right. I get really offended or bothered because the reason we started this is to elevate the standard, right? Increase business, create sustainability, scalability. I get frustrated when I find out and hear that there's 40 something unregistered products in one store. Because from what I hear from my listeners is there's all this snake oil out there, or there's a lot of garbage, or this person's doing it in their garage, or whatever. But yet we aren't doing our part to make sure that piece itself is something that's taken care of, right? How do we support you, and what does the registration product process look like? And then there was a question on here, understanding when the money comes in, can you help us know where is that going? Because this is another something I want to touch on as we grow this program. Our listeners and our viewers and our community need to understand that it's also like putting the buggy before the horse, or the horse before the buggy. The state has to have revenue to hire people to run the program, but yet we need the program to operate in order to process or have these things, right? And so how do we bridge that, and what do we do as an association and a community to support you, or make sure you have the numbers and the growers and the information you need so that we can get federal funding or funding behind you guys?
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of great questions, and I'll try and remember every one of them that you asked. So if I forget one, remind me. So first, the product registration, what it looks like. It is a bit intensive on that. I think what we did is take a look at other portions of FDA's products laws and incorporate that, kind of with the thought that that's the way they're going to go anyway, of having certain information on the label. Obviously, the THC content is the number one thing everybody can differentiate hemp products from marijuana products. But we wanted to make it there, and the overall goal for just about every program in the Department of Agriculture is consumer safety, whether we're talking about regulatory services who are in the shop or grocery markets, or meat inspection who's looking in the slaughter plants or whatnot, to make sure that what products are going out of that. And that's a big concern. And so what we're trying to do with the product registration is to have people verify to us that it is safe with COAs from third-party labs. You know, are the pesticides too high? Is there any heavy metals? You know, what exactly are the ingredients? And so those are the things that have to be submitted to us, that we review initially with our product registration team to see if we're going to register that. And it is, again, a bit intensive, and every state is different. It'll be really good, I think, once FDA comes forward and says, this is how you have to register CBD products. Because right now, I think we are probably one of the most restrictive in the nation, as I've talked to other states. That some of them you can just register anything that you want to, doesn't really matter. But based again that Utah is the laws are pretty much written. This is going to probably go against each other. They're so concerned with making it be a medicinal form, even though we can't. CBD products in Utah, we can't say that they're doing anything medical for us there, but you know, that's why they have the 8 or so medicinal forms there. So we really are checking all those boxes, making sure that ingredients are fine, that you know, that nothing is at least on the initial look is being or is in the product that could be unhealthy for humans there. And as you mentioned, the money portion of that is the big thing that we're basing our program on. There's a lot of work in the in the industrial hemp side of things, but not a lot of money that comes into it. I wish the roles were reversed as far as money does, that the money that we were getting for medical marijuana, because the licenses are so short or so small that we don't not having to deal with 220 growers, 60 processors, and going and visiting them on a regular basis. But that's not how it works. So we're trying to do everything we can to keep the fees as small as we can, but again, making sure we're meeting those regulations there. What we found is that what we found over the past year was that there's just people that are sending us information and they're getting by with their products, but as we've tested those products, if we went into a store, grabbed them, tested, that they're not what their COA says. And we also found that last year we only had about a little over 2,000 products registered in the state, so there's a lot of illegal products. And you mentioned the term snake oil, and I will be the first to admit that when I first came on the program, I had that same thought. I'm like, man, all this stuff is snake oil. People are just trying to, but the more I've educated myself, the more that I've learned, I can see that there are some good uses for these products there. And again, the consumer safety came into that. And so there was the new permit fee that I know someone kind of asked about, the $50. And what that is mostly going to do is it helps us find out what stores are selling hemp products. It lets us start to find a way that what products are in the state, and then it will help to pay for the testing of those products so we can make sure that verify that they are safe for the consumer there. And unfortunately, as we went out and started doing some of these inspections, we found some stores that had pretty much no registered products in there, and some that weren't even close to the medicinal forms, such as that cookies and candies and things that we don't allow in the state right now. So
I've seen stuff come into labs, as I've met with different labs, that they'll sell a bath bomb, and it will be a bath bomb with a few drips of crude oil on it, or it's okay. But I'm amazed at what people are putting out there. And even more so, I stand behind registered products, right?
Yeah.
Now, how to get more people to register, that's what I would like to chat about more about, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately for a lot of groups, and I don't think anybody likes regulation. And I guess I'll probably start this portion of what we're going to talk about with just saying that, we've talked a lot about communication between the groups, between industry members and the Department of Ag. And I will say that I try extremely hard, my team tries extremely hard to not take anything personal. I know that we're going to upset somebody's going to upset us type of situation, but we're just here to do a job, just as you guys are here to do a job. And so try not, as you're dealing with this, to not take it too personal, because our group needs to do a good job, and we just follow the rules to get that done. But to move on with that is what our job is, as far as product registration, is to send our 3 or 4 inspectors out into the marketplace to check on those, to first see if they are registered, if they've gone through at least the smell test or registration process, and then to find those that aren't and start that process. If they're legit, they're fine, let's get them in. And the more products that we can get registered, that helps to cover the cost of the program. We can start lowering those costs on the registration side. Earlier you asked about where the money goes to, and all the money for industrial hemp stays with us. The state, again, legislatively, through whether they're a little bit scared of it or don't understand it, they don't want this money to be used for other state resources, so it stays with us there, and they give us a small amount of money to run the program. And so once we can say, hey, yeah, we're bringing in more money than we absolutely need at a minimum, and we don't have a huge cost, it's just personnel really, we can start to cut those down, and that's my goal, to do that within the next year. But again, if we're only going to have 1,000 or 2,000 products, it probably doesn't work, because we'll spend so much time out there looking at unregistered products and testing those that we'll have to do that. But now,
I think that's something that I was pretty shocked by when Miles mentioned the number of unregistered products versus registered products. How many stores currently could be or are selling CBD? Somewhere like 4,000 retail stores, 8,000 retail stores. Yeah,
so we've had that permit registration up for a little over 2 weeks now, and we're going to be pushing already 200 within the first 2 weeks, and probably more now. That's just what I can see on the reports. And so the people are coming in quite all the time with this. And I will tell you, one of the things that kind of struck me is really interesting is I dealt with a county issue back in January down in Kane County, where they were they did actually end up stopping the growth, any growing of industrial hemp down in that county. And I just found it interesting, because the argument was, again, that, hey, this is just marijuana. That's all they really want to grow. That's what they're trying to do. And we try to argue another way. We talked about the compliance numbers and how everybody, we're over 90% in compliance with growers. It's not a big deal. People are trying to do it the right way, but it still got pushed the other way where they can do it. But I'm driving home, going through all these small towns, leaving Kanab, and there were several stores in every one that had CBD products. I mean, it's all over the place. But I'm sure the same people who are arguing about the growth or being against it were probably at the store, buying some CBD products there. And I proved to me that there's an educational problem with the public.
100%. We interviewed somebody a while ago that said something that sticks with me all the time, and I repeat it every time, is somebody says, well, are you a cannabis user? Well, do you consume CBD? Do you consume hemp lotion? Do you use hemp lotion? Do you oh, well, then you're a cannabis user. But you assume that, oh, you're a cannabis user if you're a hippie and you smoke pot, or if you're, even if you just smoke, right? If you use a tincture, you're still a cannabis user. But most people that I know or that I talk to assume that they're only users when somebody is smoking. And so I think it comes back to the education. You're not allowed to have it, but yet you're allowed to sell it and consume it and use it. And as I have shared the information about King County, a lot of our team members are shocked and even more interested in the education piece.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're ready or not, or where we're at as far as the list of questions I've already given you, but I am curious about what you see the most successful opportunity to educate our rural communities, or educate our anyone in the elected official or elected role, from schools, police officers, mayors, city elects, anything. What's your advice, or what do you see being the most successful?
I think that you guys have made a really good stride in getting Farm Bureau on board with that, and at that meeting in Kane County, Farm Bureau was there too, kind of pushing. But and mostly I say that because they have connections within those small communities and in those rural communities, but it just takes getting out there. I mean, it really does. It's hard to get farmers and rural groups to go to meetings that doesn't directly affect them, but with Farm Bureau being there, and most counties or regions at least have those meetings, and that's where I would maybe start, is to go to those areas and start with the producers of other products to get that way. I think that folks that are not necessarily agricultural in what they produce, but they're just people living in those smaller communities, they'll start to come around as they see it. I mean, it's interesting. There's enough flags everywhere you go. You see CBD sold here, and people start to do the research. Unfortunately, with research, as we know, you can have a push one way depending on what you type into Google or the other. But I think that's a good start, is to go with the grassroots movement a little bit. Let them know that there's nothing. It's not a competition between there, but it's actually a good opportunity, and it has a lot of good qualities that come to it. So I think that the Farm Bureau and the grassroots are there, and then keep kind of moving. That'll slowly, I think, start coming in. But the big thing is to have the larger ones. Your Wasatch Front groups, I think you probably got it on board. It's pretty easy to have those. I know there was I don't know, some type of meeting on just recently, this last Saturday, that I got invited to and couldn't go. But Department of Health contacted me and wanted to make sure what we would require, and it came down to product registration. And it, hopefully it was a great turnout. And I think those things need to happen. It's a time-consuming thing, and you guys obviously are willing to do it and doing a great job at anything that needs to go education. We've heard that there's a lot of products at farmers markets, and so that might be a situation where you have someone from an association go visit farmers markets, and then people are talking to these other CBD groups that are selling them. That's where an educational thing could take place. You don't want to obviously seen as pushing people away from any sales or anything like that, but if when we go in there and do that, it's never looks very good. But again, there's people that are interested in that, and if they're interested, they're going to listen. So that's
So I have a couple of things when we talk about this would happen. I started to read what I wrote and was going to say what I was reading instead of talking about what I was talking about. It'll come back to me, but I don't know. I would love to introduce you to a gentleman that we interviewed yesterday, Justin. He's got a tracking platform with a bunch of data that is free for state and police officers to use, that tracks from basically seed to consumption on any level. Their program currently right now was designed because they were asked to do I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but they were basically tracking back product for manufacturers, right? Down to E. coli or seeds or any mold or fungus and any type of ag or any other products, tech. And so now they've transferred over to the cannabis program, but because of the cost effectiveness and the ability now to link because of data. And especially I was thinking because Utah has so many small grows and small farms, the benefit of then the state or the police department immediately knowing when they're pulling somebody over, based on a QR code that's assigned to that product, where it's at, or how many farms it may have come from, or when it was extracted, and so forth. It also links back to personal profiles instead of just the B2B side. I'd love to introduce you. I'd love to, as we've spoken, we've talked a lot about some of the concerns from both the consumer side and the businesses that we've met with, as well as solutions potentially needed for the state and law enforcement. And so, yeah, I just think it would be something that would be an opportunity. But of course, yesterday, the whole time that he was talking, I was like, wait a minute, this is something we need. We've talked about this. This is, and I don't know that it is a solution or the solution, right, based on the big picture. But I would love to explore it, and definitely explore it even for our co-ops or some of our smaller groups to understand, as they're bringing a bunch of product together to have it all processed at the same time. They then know exactly what's going into that homogenized product or that product that's being put out on the shelf, and can track it back to the farm for quality control.
Right. Which is huge. And we're willing. We've got a couple of meetings set up over the next couple of weeks with groups like that. There's a tracking group called Ag Eagle that has reached out to us that can do that. And then I think it was the gentleman, his name escapes, that was at you guys' meeting last week that has the testing capabilities, that does the size of like a toaster. We're actually meeting with him. And so we can, we're happy to, because we also take all these as an educational opportunity as well. We're just starting the program. It's a couple years old, and as I mentioned, government moves slow, which it should, but we're going to be behind industry all the time, which is another reason to rely on industry to help us out. But whatever we can do to learn and become better at what we do, and to help you guys out and help ourselves out, we're all in. So,
okay, I've got a question I'd like to bring up. Let's see if I can find it right here. Yes, I'd like to know more about the same thing regarding hemp flower being sold to our Utahns. This is a question that comes up a lot, and it's a little bit confusing, selling flower out of Utah and into Utah, and what those regulations are, or when or how it might be available. Can you kind of address that in general, and what you see coming and what has happened, please? Yeah,
that is a tough one, and it is an interesting thing. We've talked about that a lot, even in our office there. So based on the way that we read the federal rules, and also that we read our state rules, and then going to our attorneys and our policy analysts on this, our rules and statutes say that consumers cannot use smokable flower of hemp. Well, they're not supposed to use smokable flower of medical marijuana in the state of Utah either. But because it, from a grower, is being sent out of state to a processing facility, or from a process for their stuff, we don't have any control of what another state does in that situation. So that's why I don't say because we just can't do anything about that leaving the state. But the way that our regulations say that smokable flower is not one of the approved dosage forms, and that it really just comes down to that, and it's something that we struggle with ourselves on that. Again, it kind of comes back to that's what the rules say, and that's what our job is. But I imagine that's probably going to be something that changes. On the medical marijuana side right now, I can say that the most popular product at the couple of pharmacies that are open is flower. And for anybody to think that it's not being smoked, they're kind of up in the night, I guess, because it's happening there. And I think it's something that we're concerned over for not the right reasons. But again, that's above my head. I know it sounds like I'm sidestepping, but I don't know what else to say on it other than it right now. But I think that there's a way to get it changed. And I know that there's folks out there that feel that some changes in other states are going to force that issue. I've brought that to our attorneys' attentions and things, and they've stuck by what it says right now. And who knows what happens over the next legislative session. So.
Well, and again, I'm going to open this up for anybody that's listening. And I saw Justin jumped on from Hemp Batch Tracker. I'd love for you to connect. Justin, you missed. I think I was just talking about you. Chris probably, I hope, gave you a shout out and said, get on. But Hi, Chris, again. Thanks for joining. But I think that for anybody that has this concern, show up to the table, right? We join the association, join Utah CBD Collective as a member, as we really get together to put our ass together for the association on a big scale. Your involvement helps us move that forward, right? We have people that can go up to legislation, that we meet with Cody and his team on a regular basis. So in order to have a voice, you've got to be there. And I say this all the time, even in B2B networking or business development. The more I meet a lot of people, and I that's what my passion is. And I know a lot of attorneys or a lot of real estate agents, for example, right? And the more that I see a real estate agent, the more that I talk about that real estate agent. And when someone comes in, or Cody, you come up to me and say, hey, I'm looking to sell my house. Do you know a real estate agent? I know a ton of them. But the one that comes to mind is the one I see the most often. And it's the same thing. When you come in and support an association or get involved with an organization that is moving the industry with the intent of supporting everybody or the industry, not a specific organization or entity, that's how we get things done, right? Now you have a more powerful voice in a lot of aspects instead of trying to run your business and do all of the legwork. And collectively, I know a lot of people that are watching right now, I have to give a shout out. We cannot do it without you guys. And we really value your feedback and input. And so, Cody, thanks very much for being a part of that. And just know, like I said, all 50 or 500 people that will watch this by the end of the day, I know support and are on the same page. And so thanks very much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you say there. And again, I think it was Miles that mentioned it when we met the other day, but you know, the conversations are great, and that being able to have the ability to get together. But what it comes down to, I mentioned, so I see some of the comments and things, and I mentioned before that I'm not going to take anything personal, and I'm willing to talk about just about everything. But in order to move forward with major changes or something that we deem as major, it's going to have to take that either whether it's scientifically backed up or laws back it up, stuff like that. So, and I'm really not the guy who can make the changes. I'm the guy who gets to take the changes and make the program work with them. But I'm also happy to be that person to stand by you guys' side and say, hey, this is a legit situation. We've talked about it. It makes sense for what we see in the industry and from the regulatory side. So yeah, I mean, you know, again, I don't ever want to get into a situation. I'm a pretty even kill guy. But I don't ever want to get into where it's an argument. You know, I think JD's done a good job. I've had a couple of conversations with him over a couple of different situations, but there's never been any time that he hasn't been able to call or talk that it's been problematic for myself anyway. And so, again, that being said, the more conversation we can, the more we get to know each other, and the more that we understand that we could have some differing views as well. I mean, I get it. I'm regulatory. I'm a bureaucrat. I'm all those things that have now become such a bad word in the United States. I'm that person, but also I hope you guys understand I'm sincere that I'm willing to listen, and you can call and we can discuss. We can go back and forth, and it might take some time, and I might ask you really dumb questions, or at least what you think is really dumb questions. But I'm trying to also make sure that it's something that we can get behind and things. So again, I appreciate you guys' willingness to do that. So.
Well, with that being said, for those of you that don't know Cody and his team, I encourage you to show up to our events. They have shown up for us. They support us. I think that even goes more to show we as a community have set the standard in the cannabis space, that we're a community down to how consumers consume it and how it's a group effort, right? It's not a sit in your closet and smoke by yourself drug or product or medicine, whatever you want to label it, right? That also speaks to moving the needle in the legislation. We can't do it without you, and you can't do it without us, like it or not. And so, again, Chris, there are a lot of things Chris is listening that, Cody, I know you have spoken with him a few times, or if you haven't, we definitely should. But I think we should sit down on the 21st again, fill out our membership, it'll be on our application. I'll send out some info, but specifically want to talk about these topics that we want to move forward and address so that we can be organized in how to address them.
Right.
Whether you're there as a viewer or a listener, but know that that's an opportunity we're providing so that our community can have that voice and address it. And then when we talk on the national big scale level, we know the value and need federal funding to come in. And so collectively joining with other states is definitely a priority, and understanding we also, as a state of Utah, want to work with any of those other organizations or other states, right?
Right.
So it goes both ways, but showing up and understanding and being educated with solutions, not just coming to point fingers. And when we talk about standards or ethics or code of conduct, right? We're not here to fight either. And I don't just say that to you, but to anybody. I won't fight, and I know that our team won't fight. We can agree to disagree or table something. We definitely will be putting initiatives together for the bigger picture of the industry, and understanding they're not going to be on everybody's. We can't make everybody happy, right? But exactly. I also am swallowing personal agendas for the public, right? Or for the greater group. And I think that that's important if we're moving forward as an industry. Show up, communicate, or, but be willing to put the work in and for the big purpose.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I really think that, as you mentioned, that as long as we can truly prove that it's for the greater good, it's for the majority, and that it truly makes sense, then there should be no problems moving forward with just about anything. So.
Yes, absolutely. What about contact information? We talked a little bit about how do people get a hold of you, or how do people reach out to your team?
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and share what's on my email contact information, that's not a problem. I could also give you our main line, which would go to our secretary, who delves out the phone calls a little bit based on what you're wanting to talk about. Because unfortunately I'm not always available there. I try and make sure I return phone calls as quick as I can. I get to all my emails. I come in early every morning. So if there's something I missed the afternoon before, I try and get back with you there. But yeah, that works. What she shared, and we'll just, like I said, I wish I could go to every single meeting. I wish I could go to every single thing, and I try to with enough notice. But like today was my first day that I had any time to sit at my computer. So.
Well, and to be honest with you, I feel very fortunate. And I think it was brought up in some of our comments. We're very lucky to have you and your team be involved. There are a lot of organizations that keep a big distance. I also admire the professionalism that your organization puts together. I had a call and spoke. I thought I was talking to you, and I wasn't. Somebody else sent me messages, and I thought it was you. So I was like, hey, let's get on a show, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And then when I called her, she was like, yeah, I can't do that. That's not. And I said, well, I would love to, just meet you. And how did you get into the industry? I also want to put out that, you as an organization and us as an organization and any company has to be careful about what's said and what's misrepresented. I really respected when she declined to come on out of respect for making sure the information that's shared is coming down correctly and being put out correctly.
Right.
And so I think collectively, if we as an organization work to bring topics to your organization in a much more organized manner, keeping from being bombarded helps. And so we would like to be that piece in having these regular meetings. And equally as much, just letting people know that, if we're expecting this conversation, knowing that bombarding the receptionist may not necessarily get you the information, but setting up a time, being professional, like Chris said, it's all professional individuals.
Yeah, and we're not going to hesitate to send other folks out or to have them on, whether it be Miles or Mike or Megan. I've got a really good group of leadership as part of my team that are, whether they're over the inspection portion or the industrial hemp program or the medical side, that are specializing in that. They do a really good job. They are all professional, and we're not going to hesitate to send them out and let them be part of the groups and the conversation as well as they need to or even want to. So
I love it. Okay, well, I've shared the information. I had to edit it after the first time. I've learned that anytime I try to hit enter, it doesn't enter it, it just shares it instead. And so I hope that that's better. But thanks again for being on. I really appreciate it. Are there any other questions? There's quite a few in our comments. I don't know if you want to scroll through if there's any that you would like to address. Otherwise, if you want to get on our Facebook page or YouTube page, feel free to do that. You can kind of comment or respond back and forth if you would like. Okay. Or maybe have somebody on the ag department, you're welcome to. Equally as much, if there's anything that you want to address on the 21st, I would love to open it up and just give you a little bit of time to share. But real quick, what do you see as, what do you see up and coming? What do you see, in the next couple of months happening, or what do you project happening, or maybe things that you're currently working on?
Yeah, on the industrial hemp side, the number one thing that we've got going is we did just recently submit our state plan to the USDA in hopes of continuing to be this program within the state and not have USDA take it over. We submitted that the last week of June, right, just before the 4th of July. We know they've received it. We're waiting to hear back from them. So those changes that they require us to make to that or to any rules would be kind of on the forefront. We think that we've kind of set ourselves up to already meet those minimum requirements, so hopefully there's not a lot of that to do it. Our push right now, what I'd like to do, what I've tasked the inspectors to do is to go and just not necessarily inspect, but at least talk with a lot of the growers and processors to get that, to really raise that. There's obviously going to be inspections that happen and things, but also to talk to as many as we can. The more that we're out there, and like you've mentioned, we get to have the more that we can be out there and get to know people, like you said, we're going to be able to get calls and educate ourselves and them as well. You did.
I distracted you, didn't you? I saw you that's what I do. Wait, where was I?
So,
can we get a copy of that, or can we see the plan that was submitted?
I can check on that. I'm not exactly sure where that stands as far as grandma, but I can definitely check and let you know. And if it's something that we can put on our website or something like that, we'll definitely do that rather than send it out to everybody that wants it. But my guess is it is public information, but I just want to make sure, because it is between two government agencies, that we do it the right way. And as you've seen today, I'm not afraid to go ask questions either. As you mentioned, my team's pretty good about making sure they don't say anything wrong. I try really hard to not say anything wrong. So, as I mentioned, it might take me a day or so to get back to you on things, but I try really hard to make sure I get back to you, because I don't want to get us in trouble. I don't want to get you guys in trouble. I don't want to get anybody. So I want to make sure that we're all protected as this. So if that's something we can release, we definitely will release it. So.
Okay, so I've got a question for you. This is something that's come up to me as we've gone around and spoken about product registration with some other companies. It's my understanding that when they register product, they have to register for each flavor. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, tough question maybe. When I'm making product and I make a whole bunch of tea-free distillate, and I have a COA on the tea-free distillate, and then I make a tincture and I make 10,000 bottles, and 4,000 are going to be coconut, and 4,000 are going to be vanilla, and 2,000 are going to be cinnamon. Why am I registering each flavor when the batch is all the same?
So the way that it's written now is that any changing of ingredients is what makes it a different product on ours. So that's why. So even if it's just the flavor that's being changed, that's where a different SKU comes into that. And that's how we're defining a product. What we did do is to make sure that if you have the exact same product in different sizes, then we don't have you register that. So you can have, a 2-ounce bottle or an 8-ounce bottle of the exact same. We're allowing you to do that, but
now what happens when the batch changes, though, right? Well, if I'm using the same ingredients, but my first batch I use, 4 liters of distillate from, or 4 kilos of isolate from one organization, and then my next crop I go to a different lab and I have it, but I have all the same flavors and all the same ingredients. What's the managing? And this is more for my personal of understanding what the process looks like, but
Right. So, and that's a reason why we took another look at our how we're going to proceed with our products and our retail outlets, because you're exactly right. What we get on the first registration application could be completely different as far as batches. We know it's not going to always be the same batch. Part of the registration shows that they should have a way to see that through whether a website or being able to scan the label and it take them to on their phone or whatnot to see what all that is. But that's another reason why we're doing some of the product testing out there, is to verify again what all that is, and that it still is safe based on, they could have sent just something that's good. But also what we did as well to make things easier for renewal. So if your product is registered 1 year and you just go to renew it, if you've already submitted that stuff at the beginning, because we know it's changing, we're not going to have you submit it again. We're just going to allow you to renew it if everything looks good, and then we'll do our checking out in the field, where it kind of helps the manufacturers move a lot quicker and to stay compliant if they got there originally, and then we'll just check on them on the back end.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. Justin here is who I was talking about earlier, and I know there's a lot of options on this, but when we talk about tracking and the data resource and the availability and cost, Brad, I didn't mean to click on that. I don't know, but yes, sure. But yeah, it would be interesting, because this is something that we as an association talk about a lot in bringing solutions to our legislation, right? Is how do we solve this, and how do we mitigate the risk, or eliminate our risk for a lot of different verticals. But I sure appreciate your time, Cody. Is there anything else? What can we do immediately to help you out, or your organization out moving forward?
First, if it's all right, I'd like to kind of answer Chris's message that he 1059 about the grandma and not jump through the hoops. I can say that the majority of the changes are going to actually take place on us, whereas we're going to have to get out there and sample your crops within 15 days of harvest versus the 30 days of harvest. There's discussions on if law enforcement officers have to be the ones to destroy any hot product. But other than that, we're pretty much on top of that. And so, like I said, I'll try and get that out if I can to everybody, or on a website or whatnot. But yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of changes to anything. We came pretty close to what they wanted, other than we were doing the 30-day thing on sampling grows before harvest, and they're making us change to 15. Destruction's a little bit. I mean, they went a little overboard with kind of including DEA certifications and stuff. They did stay that for a little bit, and hopefully they've learned that doesn't need to go that direction, and they'll let us handle destruction between us and the growers. And that's how we're planning to move forward right now. But so really the biggest change right there is going to be that we have to get the crop tested within 15 days.
Okay, so I really am curious to this, that following the food industry SOP standards, I'm curious how, when we follow one vertical, right, what about then home building and all of the other verticals? Because I think that a lot of this, we don't have to rebuild the wheel, even in terminology and describing product. There's a lot of other industries like pharmaceuticals or therapeutic or oils that have a lot of this, have a lot of the definitions, but there are definitely some overlays that make policies and procedures that are written almost irrelevant or not work. So, but I do think that Chris is right. If we can follow a lot of what's already there and at least pull from the pre-existing knowledge, it's what we know and it's what people can relate to so much easier. Right.
Yeah, and as far as the other products that can be used for, that's again another reason to make sure that we're talking with our legislators and letting them know that, hey, there may be another avenue that we need to put down as far as either non-regulatory stuff or added regulatory aspects to it, whatever the situation would be. One of the things that I'm excited about really is that it is a new program. It's new to the United States overall. And we are going to have to change for a lot until we finally come to whatever, area where we feel all comfortable and it's moving forward. But we're going to have to expect that there's going to have to be a lot of these conversations, and there's going to be a lot of hopefully just little changes. But as we move forward, probably my estimation would be for the first 5 years of a program. But we will, we'll work together to get that through. And as long as we understand that, we're just learning. I know that some of you guys are just learning, and you're trying to get things together as a association, as an industry, and that's awesome. And that's again, as I mentioned at the beginning, what excited me about coming over to this. I didn't necessarily expect to be running the program, but I did expect, I was excited that it was something new, and I wasn't having to break things down to move forward, that we could just move forward. And I thought it was going to be easier, but so far I haven't been that correct on that. So.
Well, I'm impressed, and I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to walk alongside you in moving the industry along. I'm even more excited to announce on the 21st really what we have put together, as we've put an ask together now, or I feel like we kind of have an ask, right? But still understanding that our involvement and our ability to move the needle comes from the community's involvement. So. Right. Yeah, excited to have you, excited to work with you. Anything else, don't hesitate to reach out. And same thing for anybody listening. If you guys need help talking to Cody or his team, or have any questions about things that are up and coming, and feel free to utilize us as that resource and that tool. And same for you, Cody. If there's anything we can do for the community side and communicate with the community side, I know we kind of spoke about, we're there for you and your team as well as that.
Appreciate that.
Buffer. But yeah, we'll definitely be announcing and launching and letting everybody know about opportunities to join the organization, either as advisory or board members, or in operations, whatever it is. If it's as a member or an association, please get involved. So again, thank you very much, Cody. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We'll be reaching out, and then hopefully I'll see you then on the 22nd or 21st.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks again for joining. See you later.
Bye.